So I ran into a nice little. It was a long joke. I mean, it was like a probably a 4 or 5 paragraph joke, and you have to read the whole little story to get the joke. I mean, the whole entire. I mean, for 3 or 4 paragraphs it goes on, and it's basically an anti-socialism joke. And I thought it was a pro-socialism story at first, and at the end, the punchline is anti-socialism, and it's funny. It's actually pretty funny. I mean, it's one of those thinkers. You actually have to read. You have to read the whole entire story, and then the punchline is at the very end. It's 2 sentences at the end, and if you hate socialism as much as I do, you would laugh. But I mean, anyway, of course, there's a bunch of pro-socialism comments from these Europeans and these people from the UK, and I don't know why these anarchists are friends with socialists, but whatever. I guess people try to convert people by peacefully disagreeing and agreeing on things and peacefully, but you can't have peaceful conversations with people who want to implement government on every situation, on any situations. As soon as you romanticize government, I don't think you're up for a safe and peaceful conversation with anarchists, because anarchists are a threat to your romantic partner, the government, and so of course they start talking about healthcare and how healthcare is socialized, and socialized healthcare is the best healthcare system in the whole entire world, whatever. And of course you have the person from the UK being championed by the person, I think they're American, I don't know. I didn't look at their Facebook profile, so whatever. But the other guy kept blabbing about how he's from the UK. The UK has a great healthcare system, which they don't. First of all, in the UK, a lot of people have the same situation they do in America. See, in America, just like in the UK, you have a bunch of poor people who don't work for a living, who get free healthcare because guess what? They're subsidized by other people who pay taxes. And so you pay taxes, you're paying taxes for other people to have health care. For what? They're not earning it. They get free health care for being lazy or useless. We live in a society of people who can get away with not working. And I know some people can't work because they're physically or mentally disabled, but what about the people who aren't physically or mentally disabled that are able to work but don't want to work because they found out the system works for people who don't work? So think about it. When people say, oh, the UK is so much better than America, how? It's the same goddamn thing. In the UK, you have a bunch of people paying extra taxes for the lower rung of people who don't or won't pay taxes. What's the difference? It's the same thing in the US. In the US, the people who don't pay, I've known people who don't pay taxes. They don't earn an income, and they don't pay most taxes except for sales taxes. And because they get subsidized money from the government, a lot of times they don't pay sales tax unless they're putting gas in their car. And the thing is, they get health care, and they're getting the health care they need and not paying for it. Whereas a person like me would have to go and get a job, or keep a job and get a job that's going to offer me discounted health insurance benefits, and I have to pay a certain percentage anyway to get that health care and that health insurance. It's not health care; it's health insurance. There's a difference. Health care is when you take care of yourself. When it's the well-being of yourself. It's how you regulate yourself when it comes to your health. Health habits. Like, do you eat healthy? Do you exercise? That's health care. Health insurance is when you pay a certain amount of money to an insurance company or somebody, and you pay a certain amount and you get a certain service. They sell you a certain service, just like insurance on a car. I mean, you pay for insurance on a car, and in event that happens that you get into an accident, or someone runs into you and causes an accident and causes damage to your car, or you cause damage to someone else's car, that's insurance. Insurance isn't, I replaced the carburetor on my '68 Mustang. That's not insurance. That's car maintenance. That's car care. That's care. not insurance. So people don't understand the difference between healthcare insurance or health insurance and healthcare because they don't. Again, this is what comes into my argument. Is this person? She was talking about how she's a registered nurse and she understands everything that goes on in the medical industry, and in America, the medical, healthcare industry and the health industry and all that is just so based on capitalism and people making billions of dollars off patients and stuff. And then they go and talk about capitalism like, oh, I'm a registered nurse. I understand everything about money. Well, how is that? And then first of all, I try to make her understand there's a difference between corporatism, cronyism, and capitalism. Capitalism isn't when a state funds something or when a state enables a corporation to pass by regulations or to get extra subsidies or something. That's not capitalism. That's corporatism. When the corporations are funded or protected by the government, that's not capitalism. That's corporatism because they use the state to benefit themselves. It's not free market capitalism. Free market capitalism is when you buy something from someone and there's no obligation to buy anything, but you bought something from them and you used free will to purchase something, and that person selling you it didn't need the government to sell you that. They didn't force you to buy a service or a good. That's free market capitalism. See, there's elements of capitalism in corporations, but overall they're not capitalist. I mean, because they're not. It's not total free will of the people to fund these corporations or to buy these products. The government subsidizes them even when they fail. I mean, the government subsidizes people like Ford, GM, and Chrysler when they build shit cars and they have to have recalls, and when they lay off workers. And they're still getting money regardless of whether or not they're actually doing something right. They're not providing the best options for customers, and they still get subsidized. That's corporations getting protections from government. That's corporatism or cronyism. Capitalism, there is no safety net. You either provide the best service and the best good, or someone else does. And there's no forced cooperation. You either cooperate or you don't. You don't have to. There's no force there. There's nobody forcing you to buy a product or a good, a product or a service, a good or a service. There's no force there. But see, with corporations, they could get in bed with government, and they could have the government force you to purchase something. I mean, they could have the government contract a service for the people and say, yeah, you have to pay for these guys to plow your roads on snow days or sweep the streets every Tuesday and Wednesday at 6 o'clock in the morning. It could be technically a private corporation, but they're getting government they're getting the government monopoly by saying, hey, there's kickbacks in here, so we need your help. You need our help. And so what we're going to do here is you're going to protect us from competition. So instead of 20 people competing for a bid to sweep the streets or whatever, plow the snow on snow days and stuff like that, you have a corporation in bed with government that automatically wins the bid because there's some kind of crony deal going on, and so there's no competition there. So whatever rates they decide to charge, the government implements that because, well, the government is in bed with them, they're in bed with the government, so there's no room for competition, so there's no room for a service to actually be cost effective because the government's going to protect these people whether or not they actually provide an actual service, a good service. What if their job's not satisfactory? There's no complaining. You can't complain to the government saying, hey, these guys don't do their job right, or they only plowed one part of the road and they just piled up onto the other lane of the road, and then the people can't go, they can't go a certain direction because there's too much snow, and they didn't really do a good enough job. Well, that's the thing about government. If the government provides a service or good, they can do however they want with it. They're not providing a real service. I mean, even the corporations, even most corporations aren't that useless, and even they aren't true capitalists, even still, because they still have to rely on government subsidies sometimes in order to turn a profit or in order to continue as a corporation. And corporations are legal entities anyway. Without government, there is no such thing as a corporation. Corporations incorporate through laws. There is no such thing as corporation without government. It's a complete legal entity. How does that work? How is that capitalism? How is capitalism and government mutually, the same thing? How are they together? How is government inherently capitalist? How is capitalism inherently, part of a government? And vice versa. Well, how does that even work? How does capitalism inherently a government thing? And vice versa. Just because someone claims they like capitalism or they understand capitalism, in a positive light, does not mean they love government. I hate government, and I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, but I don't like government. And then people say, oh, well, those corporations, those day traders and those guys, they don't like government either. Bullshit, they do. They don't. Because guess what? Why do they need government? Why do all those corporations need government if they hate them? Why do you have lobbyists? Well, because lobbyists are there because government instates all these laws and regulations that hurt people, and so technically the only way corporations can even deal with anything is if they grease the politicians, because without it they're gonna be subject to heavy fines and heavier regulations. And so you don't have a lack of government when it comes to a situation with money. Most things that require money have the government involved. If you, a personal citizen, a private citizen, if you take out a large sum of money out of your bank, technically the IRS could be notified of your withdrawal for some reason. It's like they act like it's unclaimed income. Like, hey, it's your money in the first place, but somehow we got to regulate it. See, how is that fair? And how is corporations getting protections from the government capitalism? Think about it. When someone defines capitalism, they're defining not capitalism, but they're defining cronyism and corporations, or corporatisms. Corporatism and cronyism are the things they're talking about. They're not talking about capitalism. They just use capitalism as some kind of like, oh, that's capitalism, even though they don't understand capitalism. How does a registered nurse understand anything about capitalism? First of all, if they touted socialism and they got what they wanted, registered nurses make decent money in this country. They would be the first ones to pay an extra tax in order to fund the healthcare system they love. And think about it, they pay taxes anyway because they subsidize health insurance. Even in America, health insurance is subsidized, and a lot of people get the stuff for free. A lot of people get health insurance for free in this country, and people don't realize it. A lot of people get decent health insurance, for free in this country. Even when I didn't have a job, and before I believed in, being, even when I championed government, there was a time when I championed government. There was a time where I was a soft socialist. There was a time where I was in between, being a liberal and a conservative, and I didn't know what to think about anything. I was part liberal, part conservative, and I utilized government services that were funded by taxpayers. That, I didn't have a job, so I was living off other taxpayers, and I had some form of subsidized health insurance through the state of California. I was subsidized by the state of California, not really their government, but the people that lived there that paid taxes. Jerry Brown didn't pay me. The people who were forced to pay taxes under Jerry Brown. And people don't understand this. They assume that in America we don't have health insurance subsidies. Health insurance is not subsidized. Well, how do you explain Medi-Cal in California? How do you explain Medicare in the overall grand scheme of the United States? How do you explain how there's poor people who don't work for a living that have health insurance? A person who doesn't pay taxes, a person that doesn't pay into any kind of system, somehow has health insurance. So think about it. In the United States, we have health insurance. So this little Miss registered nurse, she pays taxes, right? Because she's a registered nurse. She's working. She pays taxes. She's paying for someone else's health insurance. And guess what? If any new system that the United States government implements, it doesn't matter if it's remnants of the Affordable Health Care Act under Obama or the new Affordable Health Care Act revisions or provisions under Donald Trump or any other president or any other prominent politician, the more money that you have to subsidize, the more money you need for a program, the more taxes you need to dole out. You need to collect more taxes. So the people who make more money pay more taxes. Miss Registered Nurse will pay more taxes. Registered nurses don't make minimum wage. Depending on their overtime, they can clear, or they can make overall. I'm not saying clear, but before taxes, they can make up to $100,000 a year. I heard of registered nurses making up to $100,000 a year, and I'm serious. You can look at the figures of registered nurses, their salaries, the salaries of the medical industries, and you see that sometimes, depending on how many hours they work and who they work for, nurses make really good money. A registered nurse makes really good money. Doctors make really good money. So those people would pay more taxes. A construction worker that makes $25 an hour is going to pay more taxes because you want a better health care system, which is actually just a better health insurance company, health insurance policy. You want a better health insurance. So you're subsidizing this. You're going to eventually subsidize it. Every country in the known world that has a healthcare system, actually a health insurance system, is subsidized. They subsidize it. In Denmark, they subsidize it. In the UK, they subsidize it. They subsidize these health insurance systems. The shit's not free. So some people are paying more taxes. And the more taxes you pay, eventually people realize, why am I paying taxes? Why can't I just quit my job and get on the welfare system? Why can't I be part of the welfare fund? Think about it. So as a registered nurse, this bitch is telling me that she understands capitalism when she can't even define capitalism. Then I told her to put her money where her mouth is. If socialism is so great, why do you need government for it? Why do you need a government to enable socialism? See, I'm a capitalist. I don't believe in government. And I don't care. You could take away the government. I don't need government to be a capitalist. Capitalists don't need government to be capitalist. That's the problem. People think they do, but they don't. I don't champion corporations. I don't champion taxpayer-funded protections for corporations. I'm not a corporatist. I'm not a corporate apologist. I don't believe in corporations. I believe in free market capitalism. I believe in, if you can't provide a service or a good for a decent price, and if people aren't willing to pay for your goods and services, and you don't make a profit, well, you know what? Eventually, you're going to have to either figure out how to profit by providing better services or goods, or you're going to go out of business. And there's no subsidies for that. Government, there is no government to subsidize that. Without government, there is no subsidies, and you don't need to subsidize things. You just need to provide better services and better goods, and people will either respond or they won't respond. And most of the time, they respond in a positive way. Hey, that sounds good. You slashed your prices. I wouldn't pay $100 for that, but I would pay $75 for it. And besides that, how do you propose that you're such a big lover of socialism, but you want government to utilize it? You want government to propose it. Well, first of all, if you like socialism so much, why do you need government for it? Just like, if you think capitalism and government go hand in hand, why do you support government? Why do you champion government if you think that capitalists ruin government? If you think capitalists destroy the integrity of government, why do you hate capitalism but love government? Why don't you just end it all and just say, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in government or capitalism. I'm a socialist, and I'm going to do socialist things without the government. Because they know. They seriously know, but they're too ignorant to admit it. They're too weak to admit it. They know that socialism won't work Well, it won't work anyway. It won't work with government. But they know that they can't do anything socialist. They can't provide any socialist programs without government. They can't do anything regarding socialism without government. Because it's not really socialism, it's just voluntary charity. Charities work when people, when people actually help people, when people actually stop donating your money to charities that don't work. Stop letting the government steal your money, and donate to charities that actually use most of the money to help people. Donate the money to places, to donate the money to people that actually utilize that money to help the poor people, to help people in need. Don't be a sucker. Learn things, understand things. It's easy to get caught up in things and not understand and be confused. It's easy to get confused in this world, but the thing is, it's easy to get unconfused. Just as easily as you're confused, you can be easily unconfused. Nobody understands this though. They think that in order to help poor people, you have to force other people to pay for those poor people's lives. The thing is, a lot of times you got these billionaires and these billionaires that don't pay their fair share. They're out there donating millions of dollars to fund these people's college educations. Why would a guy take $15 million of his own money and fund a bunch of poor motherfuckers in Florida to go to school? First of all, the guy's white, and he's sitting there going, you know what, I have all this extra money, and I'm going to go help poor black people and poor Latino people, and they're going to go to college on my dole. They're going to go to college because I said they're going to go to college. I realize these people need help, and I'm going to help them. I'm going to fund I'm going to jumpstart their careers by funding their education. Why would he do that? The government didn't force him to pay $15 million to these kids or pay $15 million to these colleges to fund these kids' education. He did it himself because he realized that he has more than what he needs, and instead of being greedy, he decided, you know what, I can keep most of my money still because I'm rich, but I can take part of that money and help people that are less fortunate so they can in turn grow up to be successful entrepreneurs or whatever career paths they choose, and they can be well off just like me and help other people just as I help them. And it helps, and it always happens this way. Just like when people don't understand anything about the health. Okay, first of all, if you're a registered nurse and you know everything about the medical industry, how come you don't know that before in the earlier parts of the 20th century, the 1900s, Americans were largely helped out by the concept of the mutual aid society. And this is basically where people paid pennies on the dollar for health insurance. These poor people were paying for health insurance for pennies on a dollar. And when they got injured or got hurt or they needed a medical attention, what happened is they went and they had, okay, well, you have health insurance. Well, these mutual aid societies provided cheap health insurance, so they provided cheap medical care, and these people were helped out, and they weren't burdened with large debts. They weren't burdened with, how are you going to pay this bill? How are you going to pay this large bill? Because there was no large bills, because most of it, there's a mutual aid society helped out to help. The mutual aid societies were there to help out poor people. So when they paid a little, they got a lot back because everybody paid into it. And you can have a guy that went years without needing that help, but finally one day he would need that help, and it's all taken care of because he paid for it. He paid for it. He paid for it. He paid for it, and they paid for this mutual aid society. They paid for this mutual aid society, and they got this cheap health insurance, this cheap medical care, and it worked. And if anybody knew anything about the history of the United States and their medical industries and their healthcare industries and their health insurance, and all that stuff, they would realize that before they took away the majority of mutual aid societies, before they gutted them out, mutual aid societies provided the large amount of subsidized health care, subsidized health insurance, because people are paying into it anyway. They're paying pennies. They were paying pennies on the dollar to fund their own health insurance, to fund their own medical care. And when they needed it, they were taken care of. And it was all based on consent. They consented to it. They weren't forced to pay into it, but they were glad they paid into it when they did, because they benefited from it. See, the thing with that is, doctors wanted to enlist the government's help because they thought they weren't making enough money. So the government came in and subsidized healthcare, the health insurance industries, and they regulated the health insurance and healthcare industries and all that, and they started, ramping up regulations, and the healthcare cost, health insurance cost, medical care cost skyrocketed. And then they sit there saying, well, it's too expensive for us. Well, we're going to subsidize it. The more they subsidize it, the more expensive it became. So if you're a registered nurse and you know everything, why don't you know about mutual aid societies? Why don't you know the history of free market healthcare, the free market health insurance? The idea that people paid into a system of mutual aid societies that were completely voluntarily. They didn't need government to help people. It was it's a charitable thing. And why don't you know about church-ran hospitals? For the longest time, America had church-ran hospitals that lived off the donations, not taxes. People donated money to these churches, and they took those donations, and they paid these doctors and these medical care professionals to dole out medical care to poor and unfortunate people that couldn't afford health insurance. They couldn't afford regular medical care from the regular fucking hospitals. These church-ran hospitals helped out people left and right. But of course, people don't know anything about health insurance. They don't know anything about medical care because they're just a registered nurse who touts some kind of European socialist bullshit that doesn't work. Of course, you can fund anything you want if you've taxed the shit out of citizens to the tune of trillions of dollars. Of course, if you taxed your citizens out of 80% of their money, of course you can sell back to them free health care. Oh, you got free health care only after I get my 80%. Where's my 80%? So when the Danish ask, where's my health insurance? The Danish government replies, where's my 80%? Where's my cut? Because guess what? You don't have free health insurance. The UK doesn't have free health insurance. Canada doesn't have free health insurance. People die of cancer in the UK, okay? It's not a conspiracy. People die regardless of what healthcare system you have in place. No matter what health insurance system you have in place. Doesn't matter if it's socialized. Doesn't matter if it's subsidized. It doesn't matter. People die. Even receiving the best medical care you think money can buy or taxpayers can buy, you're still having people die. So what's so great about socialized medicine when people still die? You live in a utopia where people are taken care of, right? Poor people are taken care of. But how? They die. How did Tony Wilson, the guy behind Factory Records and all that stuff, well, I don't know if it's Factory Records, but the factory. Remember the factory in Manchester where all these prominent Manchester groups came out of? Let's see here. Joy Division, Happy Mondays, I think that's what their name is. New Order. Tony Wilson was a record producer. And he was also a TV personality in the UK. And he was a avowed socialist. He was a socialist his whole fucking life. And he died of cancer. And you know why? He would have died of cancer probably anyway. He had terminal cancer. So no cancer medication available to him, whether he went to the UK, whether he stayed in the UK or went to Canada or went to Mexico or went to the United States, he would have died of terminal cancer anyway. But to ease his pain, he needed these cancer meds he needed these treatments. He needed cancer treatment. Okay, he lives in the UK. He's a UK citizen. He was born and raised in the UK. Tony Wilson was a born and bred Brit. Okay, he was a socialist. He believed in socialism his whole life. And here he is dying of cancer. He can't get the cancer meds he needs. But he sit there, he says this. He says, I can't get the medical attention I need, but these people over here are getting breast implants on a taxpayer dole. They're getting subsidized breast implants. But I can't even get cancer meds I need. And I believe in socialism. I believe in socialized medicine. And here it is failing me. And who helped out Tony Wilson? His friends did. His friends helped out Tony Wilson. You know, his friends helped him out. They purchased.
What are you talking about? I was waking me up.
They helped him out with his medical bills, his medical problems. They paid for his meds. Okay, his friends, people that knew him, people that were willing to help him out, paid for his meds out of their own pocket. The UK didn't. The UK government, the government didn't. His friends paid for his health, his health, to ensure that he was comfortable in his dying days. His friends helped him out. The government didn't. So there you go. It's one of the prime examples of how even the most elaborate socialist system doesn't work, because it needs expansive government. People love to hate government, but they love government. I don't get it. How do you hate government but love it so well? Oh, I love socialism, but without government, I don't. Socialism without government won't work. But somehow I love socialism, but I admit that it's because people they love to believe that the more you expand the government, the more power people will have. Well, no, the more power certain people who are politicians will have, the more power they will have. The power to the people is horseshit, because how do you have power to the people? How do you have power to the people when the government's expanded? How does the common citizen have more power under a more expansive government? The more government expands, how does the average citizen have more power? If the United States government expanded, tenfold, if their power reach extended tenfold, how would I have more power? I'm not a politician. I'm not part of the government. So how would I have more power? How would I have more personal say in matters of social issues and political issues? How would I have any say? If the government expands its power base, how do I have more power? I'm not government. So the power to the people is not applicable here. How do you expand government yet you believe in personal rights? You believe that people should have the power. Well, if people have the power, why does government need to be expanded? Because government doesn't speak for me, so why would I want it expanded? My say is not there. I'm not getting a say. Because my say is shrink the government until it doesn't exist. I don't believe in government. I don't need government to be capitalist. But you need government to be a socialist. That makes no sense. You have no conviction. That's the end. That's just end of this rant, because I can't believe that someone will sit there and say socialism works so great, but we need government to implement it. We need government to enable it. I believe capitalism works so great, I don't need a government. All bets are off. I don't need government. Capitalists will find a way to provide goods and services for decent prices, or for people who are willing to pay those prices. They're not forcing a sale. They're not forcing your participation. Government is. Okay? Socialists want your participation. And they're not going to do it voluntarily. They're going to force your participation through government funding, through taxpayer-funded cronyism, through taxpayer-funded government power.